It's time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
And a pleasant good evening from Title State. I wouldn't call it Title Town because we sit in the capital city, but we sit in the capital city in the state of South Carolina that will fly the Clemson Tiger paw after a third national championship for the Clemson Tigers. This is Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, for a Tuesday night, the 8th day of January 2019. Will Pelagic, Phil Kornbluth, Professor Tom Hayes. Corn on his way in, battling a little bit of Midlands traffic, but looking at last night's 44-16 victory over Alabama from Clemson's perspective, they played the perfect game. They went out and accomplished something that I don't think even the most staunch Clemson fan could have predicted. There were four ways that last night's game could have occurred: a close Clemson win, a close Alabama win, a blowout Alabama win, or a Clemson blowout. I don't think any of us thought that the fourth outcome was possible, but Nick Saban's behemoth, known as the Alabama Crimson Tide, was defeated last night, Professor Tom Hayes, and was defeated soundly by a complete outclassing by Dabo Swinney's head coaching staff and the players on Clemson's side as they were able to completely dismantle Alabama from the word go last night.
Well, you know, you stay in the business long enough, you're going to get tanned, and they got tanned. I thought it was that Clemson really had a game plan, as I thought, to attack Alabama, and it was similar to Georgia. But for whatever reason, Georgia, both times when they had Alabama at the brink of beating them, let their foot off the accelerator. And I thought Clemson did a marvelous job of keeping their foot down on that accelerator until the final seconds ticked off.
I haven't been doing this as long as you and Corn have been doing it. So I say this again, and you take this particular statement with a grain of salt, but that's the single most stunning result that I've seen in the time I've been doing this. And I said it last night. And again, I counted Clemson out after picking them 14 out of 15 games this season. I'll admit it. I was wrong. I was completely wrong about the way this game I thought would go. I thought Bama would win this one close, so that Clemson would have their moments. I didn't expect the type of offensive line performance from Clemson that they had, the fact that Lawrence didn't get touched, the fact that even though they weren't able to run the football, they were still able to move the football, and the fact that Clemson's defense forced Tua Tagovailoa into the kind of mistakes people were expecting out of Lawrence, but that Lawrence never made.
Yeah, just to tell everybody, what shocked me was when the Jets beat my Colts and Joe Namath back in '69. No, getting back to the football game, I thought, remember when I said that Alabama's was going to try to do something that Trevor Lawrence has not experienced yet, and that's seeing ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it worked the other way around. I thought after the pick six that Tagovailoa started seeing ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
He started missing guys. You know, the guy we said one of the most accurate quarterbacks we've ever seen play the game started missing guys by a foot, a yard here, that sort of thing. And that's because he was trying to fit the ball in, and he was worried about where's the second interception coming from. And I thought Clemson got in his head. But I thought the turning point of the football game, because I look at things early, is when Clemson held Alabama to that field goal after it was 14-13 and it was 16-14 Alabama. I said, this is Clemson's game if they want it, because they've shown that they can stop Alabama in the red zone.
I need to go back and look and see what Clemson has done in second quarters this season, because the second quarter has been their money quarter. They scored 17 points in the second quarter last night against Alabama. They did 20 against Notre Dame, and that was a point in time where they basically got the game over with. It wasn't technically over at halftime. It was over when Nick Saban went for that costly fake field goal that was right into basically a field goal safe formation that Clemson had. And at that point, I think we all knew that Nick Saban knew his team didn't have it. And I think the one thing, too, that we look at, you saw the emergence of players on a national level that we've come to realize, not just Lawrence, not just ETN, but guys like Justin Ross, who basically took all of the stuff about, being from Alabama, funneled that forward, 6 catches, 153 yards, and really just an amazing performance from him. And the fact is, while they will lose a lot from this squad that's graduating and will go to the NFL, there's plenty coming back for a reload job.
Well, again, we've seen Clemson reload before, but I'm waiting to see that front four reload. But people get with the regular system of things. When a team is down 21 points, that's when you take them out of their game plan. And when Alabama could not answer on that, I think that second drive in the second half, when they lost on what was it, 4th down and 4, and they went for it, I say Clemson's got this football game. They got the football and they got a 21-point lead. It's over, and thank goodness, because I want to thank the Clemson Tigers personally for me having a good night's sleep. Did not have to stay up to the last second like the last time they won the national championship.
That's Tom Hayes. I'm Will Pelagic. Phil Kornbluth joins us now. And Korn, just an amazing performance. And we said it in the open, one that I don't think anybody, even the most staunch Clemson supporter, could have expected.
Oh, absolutely not. I don't want to repeat everything you guys said, because you nailed it as far as the way things went down last night. Just complete domination. You win a game like that, it's not because the other team did this or the other team did that. It's because of what you did. And Clemson just made Alabama look poor most of the night. Alabama had its moments early on. They couldn't take advantage of what opportunities they had. Thought they were totally outcoached by the Clemson staff. Thought they were totally outcoached. Brent Venables had that defense dialed up again. And then offensively, when Clemson got it going and kind of got into their rhythm, and Jeff Scott and Tony Elliott, especially Tony Elliott, who's the play caller, kind of got into his rhythm. It was Clemson doing its thing on offense, which is to hit you deep. And I think you saw exactly why when they made the change at quarterback, what they were thinking about with Trevor Lawrence, because look at the deep balls that he hit on last night. Look at the chunk plays that Clemson had last night. You don't do that to Alabama. 500, the 3 good games that they've had against Alabama, not counting last year, which wasn't the good game, the 2 wins in the championship game and the close loss. I mean, Clemson's averaging over 500 yards in those 3 games. Teams don't do that to Alabama. And it's a good matchup for Clemson because they don't fear Alabama. Dabo has developed that mindset now that it's Clemson. It's not Alabama. And he said years ago when he started building this thing, his goal was to make teams want to be like Clemson, not for Clemson and the Clemson fans to think that they want to be like Alabama or Michigan and Notre Dame. He has done it. He has absolutely turned the college football world on its head and put Clemson at the very top. And the question is, how long will they stay? It's they've been to the top before, a little bit of a slip last year, not too far, and back to the top again now. And as you guys mentioned, they lose some guys off of defense, but man, they still have a ton of weapons coming back on the offense and more arriving in the next couple of recruiting classes. There's no reason to think they're going to go away anytime soon.
But, I got to believe in my heart of hearts, looking at that football game and looking at his old boss, Kirby Smart was last night sitting there kicking himself because Georgia did the same thing to Alabama in the first half, but they let their foot off the gas. Dabo made sure keep pressing on that accelerator. I want these people blown out because Alabama's the type of team, if you let your foot up, they'll find an opening. So Clemson did not let Alabama breathe one iota.
Well, here's the other part of this, too, that I think we said on the show last night, our live show, and thank you to all who were part of that on Periscope and Facebook. But we saw that Alabama cannot cycle through these coordinators and assistants as quickly as they've done over the last couple of years. Clemson showed you what continuity means from a staff, and the trio of Venables, Elliott, and Scott completely just overwhelmed anything from the Alabama Brain Trust standpoint.
Though they did win a national championship last year after changing some coordinators. I mean, they have done it. This just wasn't their year to make it happen. Back in a moment.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Full board of calls, so if you're trying to get in, we will get you in as we possibly can. 800-956-7266. Couple other Clemson notes. The Tigers will land at GSP around 9, then we'll immediately drive back to the football complex. They're expecting them around the 10:30 area. I don't know if there's anything official planned as far as a gathering, but folks are expected to at least address the media.
Yes, they're going to be a couple of players speaking to the gathering, to the crowd when they get back on campus. Right. They're going to go over to the administration building. Yeah, and have a little something there.
And also the parade has been set for Saturday. 9 a.m. is when it will start. It will kind of go through campus and then end at the stadium. They'll do a little in-stadium thing at 10:30, and they expect it to be over by the time noon hits, so that'll give them time to have fans go right across the street to Little John Coliseum for a big basketball game, the home ACC opener for Clemson against Virginia. So big weekend on the Clemson campus. 800-956-7266. Reach us not only on our Twitter, but also on our Facebook and also at Periscope at SportsTalkSC. We took some questions last night on there. We'll take some more as the evening warrants, and of course all the phone calls to come. Positive Gamecock news too today.
Yeah, Brian Edwards announced he's coming back for his senior year, so that completes it for the Gamecocks as far as the guys they were wondering about. It's all positive news. They get Donnell Stanley back, they get Jake Bennett back, Jake Bentley back, and they get Brian Edwards back. Also, the Board of Trustees at USC meeting tomorrow to discuss an athletic personnel decision, hiring, yes, and it has been reported, I think, first by the Big Spur. Gamecock Central's also reported it, that there's going to be some changes on the staff. The thing that they are reporting is that South Carolina is going to hire Thomas Brown as its running backs coach, which means Bobby Bentley is going to be moving. The word amongst the insiders is that he's going to be moving to the tight ends coach, which means it looks like Pat Washington, though this hasn't been announced yet, may be out of a job. And there's other talk about other moves on the Gamecock staff. So Thomas Brown comes from Miami, where he was Mark Richt's offensive coordinator. He had been at Georgia, where he was an outstanding running back for the Bulldogs, spent some time in the NFL. He and Brian McClendon, of course, were teammates, and they have a prior relationship. So that appears to be happening.
Can't beat him, join him.
Well,
Georgia.
No, here's the question. If the Board of Trustees is meeting,
should be the other way.
I'm saying South Carolina can't beat Georgia. They're Georgia.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I was looking at it the other way.
Should we extrapolate from that if the Board of Trustees is involved, this is a multi-year contract for Brown?
I would think so. Nobody's coming for 1 year. Brown takes over at running back, which, the way I look at it, that's probably a good move. Bobby Bentley is not a running backs coach. I mean, he's a good coach. He's not a tight ends coach either. He's a quarterbacks coach. He's really a coach without a position, but he is a good recruiter. And as coaches have told me, when you look at it, outside of your coordinators and I think it's your defensive line coach, they tell me, you better have good recruiters at all the other positions. Your coordinators have to, of course, take care of coordinating both units, and then your defensive line coach had better be very good. His
position is not tight end coach. His position is in-state relationships man and recruiter.
Now, here's the other question involved that will be decided on. If I'm not mistaken, Pat Washington was upstairs.
Yes.
Always been upstairs.
Yes.
Bentley has always been downstairs.
Right.
Now, with his coordinating experience, of course, coordinating an offense, do you think he goes upstairs?
Probably.
Or he wants to remain down?
I'd say he goes upstairs.
I think it's irrelevant because he doesn't coordinate. I mean, the offense is run by McClendon and Werner, and McClendon now is downstairs and Werner is upstairs. So,
however, even if you're up in that booth, look, we need to do this because it looks like a staff that takes advice. They're not autonomous from. I'm not listening.
I mean, I don't know how it works in the box for them, but I mean, you have your play caller. You've got 30 seconds to get a call, and you don't have a chance to have a lot of voices in your head. I don't foresee that being an issue. Let's see, a couple of things I want to mention. The final AP ranking that came out after last night, of course, Clemson is number 1 Alabama is 2. Ohio State is 3. Oklahoma 4. Notre Dame is 5. LSU is 6. Tied for 7th. Florida, Georgia. At the line, Florida-Georgia line. 9 is Texas, and 10 is Washington State. So if you're a Gamecock fan, let's see. On the schedule next year, you've got number 1 Clemson, number 2 Alabama, number 7 Florida, number 7 Georgia, number 12 Kentucky. And that's about half the top 10 is going to be on your schedule next year.
Missouri was in the top 25 before their bowl loss to Oklahoma State, too, so they could be on the fringe as well.
One of the toughest schedules in the country.
It was the toughest
next year, no question.
And last year was the toughest as well amongst a couple of different publications as well.
And number 3 is Ohio State.
Number 3 was Ohio State, yes.
That is interesting how they have they've absconded with 2 of Michigan's defensive coaches. It's funny how you go to your rival staff and just robbing people.
I know that my prediction meter has been broken this year, but if you were planning a December vacation, Gamecock fans, if you're waiting on that and maybe not going to a bowl, this might be the year to think about the December vacation somewhere that's not a bowl site.
They do not want to hear that. I got to mention a couple of other things. The ratings last night were very good, according to the ESPN PR machine. But
not good in relevance to the way that it had been over the course of the last couple of years. It was the lowest rated game since 2012, I think, the LSU.
Well, it says delivered cable's highest overnight in a year. Clemson's victory earned a 14.6 overnight across all ESPN's outlets, peaking at a 16.2 when the Tigers went up by 15 points. So,
And, of course, you got some
still low in reference to all the ones in the history.
Of course, you got some bad news last night because, let's face it, I think ESPN won a big one because they kick off, while they're hemorrhaging money, they kick off the ACC network, but now they kick it off with the national champion in August.
Clemson's blowout win, a 14.6 overnight, the lowest for a college football national championship since Bama LSU in 2012, which was a rematch. That was on ESPN.
How many years ago?
2012.
All right. One more note. The Citadel's losing a key player as it was announced by their standout corner, Kafari Buffalo. He's going to graduate in May and transfer to an FBS program for his final season. And Buddy Pugh, official now, going to be back for another year at South Carolina State. He'll join us later on in the week. All right, 800-956-7266 is the phone number. Let's get to the phone calls. We'll take your phone calls here through the rest of this hour. We'll have 1st and 10. Well, this will be maybe 2nd and 10 with Zach Willis, says he's going to look back at last night's game. We head down to the Port City, where we interrupt what has been a great show to bring you the de facto mayor of the city of Charleston, the bad boy by the bay, the ninja of the night, the pontiff of the Port City, the queen of the cowboy crybabies, and the man who swims out to Fort Sumter every morning and collects the unexploded cannonballs and returns them to the Citadel just in case they have to be used again when the northern invaders come into our state. People like who to my right here.
Stop it.
It's not Jim Rome. He's making millions. It's J. Rome, who's just making people mad. Or he fell asleep. Jerome, are you there? I go through all that, and you're going to tell me you're not there? Hello, Jerome. I think we got a button pushed wrong. I might have done that to you last night, Brian. I was playing with the board last night. Hang on a second. Let's go to our next caller. I go through all that, and Jerome is not there. I cannot believe it. Delvin and Fountain Inn, much simpler. Welcome to Sports Talk.
You mean to tell me that our phone thing is broken?
Hello.
Delvin, you there?
Hey, guys, how y'all doing?
Real quick,
identify yourself.
Delvin, my name is Delvin. How you doing?
We got you, Delvin. Go ahead.
What do you think about Quentin Williams coming out again to my Clemson's defense was very easy. Clemson's offense was very easy to defend. If that's the case, why did I not hear his name all last night? Because I didn't even know he played last night. That's how good the offensive line was against him. And Clemson put up 40-something points. So how was it easy to defend?
He was not. He made some real stupid comments last night. He said that was easy. He was the same guy who had to hold his tongue when talking about Kyler Murray of Oklahoma. Listen, as much class as Alabama's head coach showed last night, their players did not show out well last night when talking about the game. Even Tua Tagovailoa, who said things that were basically weird. As we continue here on Sports Talk, 800-956-7266 at SportsTalkSC on Twitter and Periscope and Facebook. And also we'll hear a little bit from the players and coaches after last night's national championship victory. And, guys, I know that people will try and say, when was the game won? What was the key moment of the game? This game was won during the fifth week of the season when Chase Bryce completed that fourth down pass to T. Higgins against Syracuse. That was, I think, the moment where you thought, okay, if they can get themselves back whole again, this is going to be a special season. And, there's little omens throughout the season. I think that certainly was one of them.
Yeah, no question. I mean, they dodged that bullet. It gave them hope to continue to have a great year, and they took advantage of it. Didn't let off the gas from that point forward, crushed everybody they played down the line. And listen, best team in the country, proved it last night. Everybody said these are the two best teams in the country. They're both undefeated, and Clemson was clearly the better team, better coached. I'm not going to say more motivated or anything like that, because motivation rises as things go well for you on the field, and Alabama was getting beat down. And I think Alabama made some curious decisions, both on the field, and also I really thought that Tagovailoa was not himself, was not totally healthy, was not running around and moving like he normally does. And I'm a little surprised that they did not go to Jalen Hurts, at least earlier in the second half, just to change it up and see if he might provide a spark. This is what he did last year in the national championship game. When Hurts wasn't moving the team, he made the change, and he was a genius coach. This time he decided to sit on his hands and allow somebody to call a fake field goal.
That was bad.
Allow somebody on fourth down to call a quarterback keeper. You don't run wide against Clemson's defense. If you know one thing from scouting them and watching them, they're so quick, especially at defensive ends. You're not going to run wide on them. And if your quarterback in particular is not healthy and not able to run, you're not going to beat them to the edge. And they got stopped on a key fourth down play there. So Saban did not have his best night last night.
He owned the fake field goal, which was admirable. The wide run on the 4th and goal, they just showed it again on television. That was the most inexplicably stupid play call that was made all night. Like that to me was just baffling.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think Midley, from watching Clemson very prepared, it's almost like they took a certain amount of time after each practice and Dabo Alabama, and they worked on Alabama the whole year. I think the other thing is that tanning they took last year was still in their heads. We're going to get these guys this year. We're not going to just beat them.
What's a tanning?
We're going to beating them up bad, and they took a tanning.
Second time he's used that.
Yeah.
I heard on the way in, I thought to myself, were they lying out by the beach?
Well, you
butt whooping.
Remember when you get
pantsing? Is that the same thing as a
Yes,
pantsing?
yes,
No.
it's a pantsing. Is what that
with
is.
a belt. The other one,
Oh, I get it now. Tanning, yeah, like tan your hide.
yes.
Oh, I
yeah.
get it now. Yeah.
The other,
I've heard that before.
the other thing I
Took me a little
thought,
while to remember.
the other thing I thought was when Clemson fans were saying we can't win a national championship, I think their defense got what they needed, and I think their defense refocused after they gave up that 35 points to South Carolina. They said, "Wait a minute, this ain't us." And we ain't letting this happen again.
All right, let's get back to your phone calls. 800-956-7266. We go to Stan, the Tiger Man. I know he's happy tonight. Stan, welcome into Sports Talk.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you taking my call. I tell you, there's not a better show in the land, that fellas. How about that game?
It's big, man.
Pretty impressive.
Yes, I tell you what, I'm just tell it like it is. That's the only way I know to go on. They were out-coached, outplayed. Venables had the defense where they were disguised and had the quarterback confused. And it's just hard to believe. And for all the non-believers out there, I think this ought to wake some of them up. I kind of was thinking about what old Will Merritt said. It don't pay to bet against the Tigers. And if you remember, the Pastor Payne made out like they made a big mistake by letting Lawrence come in. But as you see, he gave the other fella his chance. And they talked about how he didn't look like a 19-year-old. And I tell you, it's just hate to get on the negative, but I'm just bringing up the truth of it.
Yeah.
He played and couldn't have done no better. For be 19 and not played no more games. So I just say it's great to be a Tiger fan, and we're really blessed, especially with the coach. He's a man that's not ashamed of his faith either, and that's a blessing to me. I'll say that and listen to the rest, and y'all done a good job this year, and I appreciate you.
All right, you too, man. Thank you. You know, if you're not a believer in Clemson football, then you just got your head buried in the sand.
You're obstinate.
I mean, you just want to be a hater because you want to be a hater.
Well,
you have to accept, and I know this is hard, just like it is in Alabama. It's got to be hard for Auburn to accept where it is in that state with Alabama, though Auburn from time to time, of course, has been a national power. South Carolina has had its moments, but has never really had its time as a national power. They've had their moments. The 3 years of 11 straight wins with Spurrier, the 1984 run. Outside of that, they've always been second fiddle. South Carolina is getting better, but Clemson is also getting better, or perhaps has just reached a point where they can't get any better, but they're not sliding back. So if South Carolina plans to be competitive with Clemson in the years to come, they're just going to have to get extremely a lot better.
Well, they're at Everest right now, is where they are, and Alabama's with them, and South Carolina might be at the base camp right now.
Yeah, I mean,
that's where they are.
But South Carolina has got to
they're on the mountain.
Hold the line, keep doing what it's doing. Understand that if you want to compare with Clemson, that it didn't happen overnight at Clemson. It took Dabo Swinney a good 4 or 5 years to build the base and to start developing and accumulating the talent. And then when it broke big for them. And they have fed upon their success. Now, you're only into year 3 of Muschamp. And you know what? Stubbed a little toe this year. Listen, Clemson lost in the Belk Bowl or whatever it was called back then as well. Remember? They lost to South Florida, to Skip Holtz. And people were starting to not call for Dabo's head, but they were starting to say, hey, where are you going here?
We had callers. We had callers wanted Dabo gone.
They were upset.
The 2 jobs I see right now for Patience is they never made it to the mountaintop, but he built a strong program. I think it was his 5th year. Frank Beamer was 4-7. And the board of trustees, it's time to get rid of him. And a few board members said, no, if y'all think this is the guy, keep him. The next year, they turned the corner and they never stopped.
20-something straight bowl appearances.
Exactly.
And the other part of this, too, and again, we're talking about this from the South Carolina angle as opposed to the Clemson angle. And again, a lot of Carolina fans are asking about, how are they getting better? This is what they're saying on our Periscope at SportsTalkSC.
How is South Carolina getting better?
Yes.
Jake Bentley coming. Well, no, I'm going to say Jake Bentley coming back, Brian Edwards coming back, Donnell Stanley coming back, and the facility
has come. Yeah. The commitment that they're showing financially to their assistants, and the fact that you are going to be playing a schedule over the next couple of years, including this upcoming year, more representative of the way that you can basically make hay and really make your program look better. And it's not about recruiting rankings. It's not about things of that nature. Just from the standpoint of where you sit right now, you are on the upward trajectory. You're nowhere close to the top, but you are at least on the upward trajectory.
And also is something that Muschamp and his staff, no matter how hard they work, is something that's out of their control. And it's not an excuse, but it's a fact. You cannot win consistently if you've got 8, 9 starters on your defense in the training room and not on the field.
And you got to score. You got to score a point against Virginia. That's the one thing you got to do.
Quickly, let's go because we need to let people talk. Let's go to Wayne in Scranton. Next up here on Sports Talk. Welcome in, Wayne.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
I got a quick question. Are y'all in? Y'all used to be on 95.3 out of Florence. You're not on there anymore. Are you on a local station in Florence?
Yeah, we're on.
Because I don't get to hear y'all.
It's on 96.3, the ESPN station in Florence. They moved some things around a little while back, and I believe it's 96.3. The same station that Alan Smothers is on in the morning.
Okay.
If you listen there.
Yeah, it's a great time to be a Tiger. I love seeing all them people that died at Clemson. I love to see their face, especially Corey Miller. I know he's eating a bunch of humble pie this morning.
Yeah, I tell you,
he's getting a beating right now.
Well, you put your neck out there like Corey did and continues to do. He's going to have to
his son.
Eat it.
It's his son.
Well, but he also took shots at Clemson. You know that.
This is his son, though.
All right, we'll be right back.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. I do want to say one thing, and I'm never one to really tell people to walk along, but Al, who keeps spamming our Twitter account saying stuff like we're not asking questions about Osterine. We asked questions about Osterine for about 3 damn weeks, and they didn't say a darn thing about it. And there was only 3 players at 85. And I'm just like, dude, like, find another cross to die on, man. Seriously. They won this game not because of Osterine. They won this game because they're just damn better than Alabama. Plain and simple. Point. Move on. 800-956-7266 is the number. We've got some recruiting for you coming up. Zach Willis with his post-game analysis coming your way, and more of your phone calls. Keep the calls rolling. And by the way, you mentioned it earlier. I do want to follow up on what you said. We really had a good time last night. Yes.
Talking through the game, rather, after the show on our Periscope and on our Facebook Live. And we thank the several thousand people that tuned in at some point or another to listen in or gawk at us or fire a question or comment at us as the game was moving on.
Make fun of how much pizza we were eating, or
pizza was good. Yeah. Brian had a good time.
While he stayed.
While he was here.
Before you messed up his board.
Until I messed up the board in there. Back to the phones we go. It is Dale in Columbia up next here on Sports Talk. Hello, Dale.
Hey, guys. I tell you what, Clemson proved last night that they should go on history as one of, not the greatest, especially modern-day team in collegiate football in the history to go 15-0. And I tell you right now, I think because of Dabo's age, where he's located at, and the program he's built, he is now the gold standard. I think Nick Saban, I'm getting older myself, but Coach Saban will be 68 years old. When will that start to affect the recruiting? How much longer will he be there? I think the way they played last night and where they looked against Georgia, I think that they're a program, not saying they're going to just fall off the cliff, but I think right now everybody's going to be comparing to Alabama and Coach Sweeney. They're going to be good for a mighty long time.
Well, I'm sure one thing Nick Saban is looking at today, among other things, he's looking at Clemson, and he's got to be thinking, what are they doing that we're not doing?
Keeping assistants.
Well, not just
continuity.
That. Not just that. Who was, besides Trevor Lawrence, who was the shining star of that game last night?
Justin Ross.
And where's he from?
Phoenix City, Alabama.
Right-to. And Clemson has more coming in from Phoenix City, and they're recruiting. My point is, you just don't go into Alabama and get the player of the year. It's happened from time to time, but not on a regular basis, because Alabama in particular and Auburn, they usually lock down their borders. But here comes Clemson now, and they did this in Tennessee. Where's Higgins from?
Tennessee.
He's from Oak Ridge. Where is Rogers from? He's from Knoxville, right in Tennessee's back door.
And they did the same thing going into the state of Georgia, getting the #1 player with Lawrence. They went into Ohio and got Jackson Carman.
Right, exactly.
The
Georgia thing is not surprising, because Clemson has always recruited Georgia like it's South Carolina.
They're in Georgia's back door.
Exactly. Georgia's a natural recruiting turf for Clemson.
David will tell you he found people who thought Clemson was in Georgia.
That was hilarious.
That was pretty hilarious.
But to go into Alabama, even though Phoenix City is a border town between Georgia and Alabama, to take a player, the #1 player in the state of Georgia, away from Alabama, #1 player in Alabama, away from Alabama and Auburn. I mean, that just doesn't happen every day. And now Clemson is, they didn't get the offensive lineman out of Oxford who's going to go to, but there's Georgia going into Alabama and pulling the Webb kid away from the state. I mean, if you're Alabama and Auburn, you got to be taking a look at these things and going, all right, what's happening here in our own state? This isn't natural. This doesn't happen on a regular basis. And when you start losing players in your own backyard like that to out-of-state schools, then you start having a little bit of a problem, I think. Not that Alabama's going to, just fade away here, because they still are loaded with talent. They continue to, of course, recruit extremely well.
But then again, if you're Dabo Sweeney, you think, again, you learn a lesson from that is, when you got a good kid in South Carolina, he may not be the top kid, recruit that kid. Because sometimes Alabama and Auburn recruit nationally,
and they'll tell kids, well, they're forgetting about our kids in here.
Well, the thing about it is, too, most of their championships have been won when Nick Saban has been able to, have the month to prepare for the national championship game. Now it's a situation where you have a month to prepare for the semifinal, but you only have a week to turn around and prepare for the final. And when he's had a week to turn around and prepare for the final, they've all been either close games or this Clemson blowout.
All right, let's go to Tony in Myrtle Beach. You're up next here on Sports Talk. How are you?
Hey, guys. How's it going tonight?
We're doing great. Thank you.
I called a few years ago when they first hired Muschamp, and I said, do Carolina fans have intestinal fortitude to stick it out like Clemson did when Dabo was going through the 0-5? And I predicted that they wouldn't. And all I've heard is Muschamp's got to go. He can't get it done. Carolina fans have got to stop looking at Clemson and comparing themselves right now.
Yes.
They are the pinnacle, and that mountain looks too big to climb. Carolina needs to compare themselves to Carolina right now. Are you better than you were last year? And right now, you just got to keep getting better and better. And eventually, that gap will close. And then you can start looking at Clemson and going, that's where we got to get to.
I'm going to give a
but
little.
Right now, that mountain looks way too big to climb.
I'm going to give a little something for South Carolina fans. I'm going to call it a little tough love. If you're a South Carolina fan today, here's what I have to tell you right now. Shut up. Let Clemson.
That's kind of mean.
Let Clemson fans have their day.
See, now that's going to be put on Twitter and Facebook.
Shut up.
Will Pelagic to Gamecock fans, shut up.
The heck up.
Well,
okay?
Here's the key.
Shut up.
Here's the key.
I think they heard you the first time.
Here's the key how you grow a program.
Shut up.
Because you had
let it build.
Because you had 3 guys who could have gone pro and said, we like what's happening here. We're coming back to try for. So that's where it starts with the culture. When players
also helps if all your players play, the entire season when they're healthy.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. Well, Tony hit it right on the head. You need patience. Wanting to fire Muschamp after year 3 is ridiculous.
Yeah, anybody's talking about like that as an idiot.
No,
I'm sorry, you're a fool, and you don't build your program. You got a good man. There's no question. He's a good family man. He makes a great representative of your university. He works his tail off. He recruits as hard as anybody. Does he have as much to sell as these traditional winning programs? No, but it's there now. They've got all the pretty shiny pieces. Now it's just a matter of getting those results. And those results, listen, they live, I hate to put it this way. No, I'm not going to put it this way. That's a bad way to put it. They live in a tough neighborhood. They're in the SEC. They live, and even though, Clemson's the king of the mountain, the SEC is still a tough neighborhood. When you have the 19th ranked recruiting class in the country, but it's only 9th in the SEC, you live among some tough people. And what you've got to do is develop and just be smarter coaches. Can they do that? Can they develop and be smarter coaches?
Would you say you have more now than you did when Dabo started at Clemson? You have more now than when Dabo started at Clemson?
Oh, no. So because Spurrier left it in such a bad way.
No. I'm saying from the standpoint of you have the SEC, you have a brand new facility, you have the tools around you to be able to turn things into a positive.
Well, listen, Dabo's always had the easier track to the top.
Well, that's because
by virtue of living in the ACC.
Yes.
Well, not only that, but he had Bobby
one thing
Bowden
about Tommy Bowden. One thing about Tommy Bowden, he got the West End Zone project started.
Yes,
right.
He insisted on that. He was the one that got that kick started. And even though his last year did not go well and he had to be replaced, he had a nice run of success. They felt like he couldn't get them to that level they aspired to.
That Wake Forest game got him. The other lessons to be learned is this. If you want a great football program quick, ask Hugh Freeze what it's like when you try to go for the quick fix, had a great team, and then everybody's gone, recruiting violations, everything else.
Yeah, I think Muschamp is not taking any shortcuts, and that's the way to do it. You got to build it. I hate to be clichéic here, but you got to build it brick by brick, and that means player by player. You have to be selective. You have to make sure you get the right fit for somebody who wants to be in your program and stay, as long as their talents will keep them there.
All I'm saying is today is not the day to bitch about Muschamp.
We will continue with your phone calls after the top of the hour.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Okay, we're back. Sports Talk here on a Tuesday night, post-championship nights in the state of South Carolina. The Clemson flag flying above the State House, representative of the Tigers' championship victory last night over Alabama.
That was a little weird, by the way. I know why they do it, but I know people walking in Columbia, I probably found that a little weird.
They have flown the flag when the USC women won a national championship, when the USC baseball team won its national championships.
I know.
Before, when Clemson's won football championships. Absolutely. 800-956-7266. All right, so now It's also basketball time. Looking forward to tonight's 9 o'clock game in Columbia. Mississippi State coming to town to face the Gamecocks, a very good Mississippi State team. Interesting lineup that they go with. 3 guards, 2 bigs, the Weatherspoon brothers, including Q Weatherspoon, one of the best players in the country. And South Carolina will have to deal with him, and a guy that can hurt you both in terms of his guard skills and his ability to hit the boards and score inside. See if South Carolina can build on its surprising win at Florida the other night. Gamecocks are the only team in the state in action tonight. Right now in the ACC, you've got Duke up on Wake 9-6. In the SEC, it's MIZ. It's MIZ.
I'm not doing it. I'm not falling for that.
It's MIZ.
ZOU.
MOUSEY.
Up on UT.
Yeah.
5-4.
Well, here's the key to Mississippi State. You got to make their shooters drive, because I swear when they're playing well, Mississippi State is either shooting a 3 or laying it up. There's no in between. They like to bomb away.
This will be their SEC opener, and they are overall 12-1. Also tonight in the SEC, you've got Alabama at LSU and Texas A&M playing at Kentucky. And in the ACC tonight, besides the game in Winston, you have got North Carolina at NC State. We get back to your phone calls here on Sports Talk. 800-956-7266 is the number, and we go next to Tommy in West Columbia. Welcome into Sports Talk tonight, Tommy. How you doing?
Hey, Phil. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
We're good, thank you.
Okay, I've got a scenario. Coaches are not so smart and pretty smart.
Mm-hmm.
And Clemson ended up, I'm a Clemson fan, Clemson ended up coming out smelling like a rose. But if you go back, Clemson could have very easily have won that game against Alabama last year, not with Kelly Bryant, but they could have won it if they'd have made a strategic decision during the year. You remember when they were playing Syracuse and Kelly Bryant, they sent him out there supposedly healthy, and he had the bad ankle.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, it goes back to Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson spoiled Clemson. He was a great passer and a great runner. Well, then they went to running quarterbacks, and they ended up with running quarterbacks who were pretty good runners but not good passers. They had Kelly Bryant and Cooper,
Mm-hmm.
and they
had Hunter Johnson as well.
That's where I'm going. They also had Hunter Johnson, who was the number 1 quarterback that year, ahead of Tua. Tua was like number 3 that year. Hunter Johnson was number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And they had Hunter Johnson at number 3. And this is where it was not so smart. And that they brought in Cooper after the first half, after Kelly Bryant got hurt. And instead of bringing in Hunter Johnson,
Mm-hmm.
if Hunter Johnson would have come in, they would have probably have beaten Syracuse, and he would have gotten enough experience by the time they played Alabama. They would have had a situation similar to Trevor Lawrence, throwing the ball and running a little bit against Alabama.
And so what you're saying is they would have won that game and would have avoided playing Alabama in the semifinals.
Pardon?
They would have won that game had they gone with Hunter Johnson, and thus would have avoided playing Alabama in the semifinals.
Because they were the 4th seed playing number 1 Alabama.
Well, whoever they would have played, they would have had a good chance of winning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
they would have had a good chance. Pardon?
I understand the point from what you're saying, and that was a point that I hammered home a little bit last year. I, no doubt in my mind, thought that Hunter Johnson was the better choice than Cooper in that football game. They, for some reason, were never as comfortable with Johnson running the playbook as they were with Cooper. I don't know why. It just was the fact of the way that they ran their team, the way that they operated. And again, I don't know if Hunter Johnson could have done what Trevor Lawrence did this year, but it was, again, clear to anybody who saw him in spring. I go back to the throw I saw him make in fall camp where he looked one safety off and then found Justin Ross up the seam for a 60-yard touchdown pass against Clemson's 1D. When I saw that, I said there's no reason this guy shouldn't be the starting quarterback by the end of the season.
See, I know coaches have to do things on the fly, but, just to defend the coaches, sometimes if you have a quarterback that's strong running the football and you got a game plan lined out for him, and in the midst of the game starting, he has to come out, do you want to plug in the quarterback who's more of a drop back passer with the game plan you already have in place, or put in the other running quarterback? I mean, it just, to me, makes sense to put in the other guy that plays similar to the guy that got injured.
All right, thanks for your phone call. 800-956-7266. Just looking at the video that Brian Edwards used to announce his decision to come back.
You never see that before?
No, I just looked at it just a moment ago, and he said, enjoy y'all Tuesday nights. You can stop asking me now.
And he put the quip of the Wolf of Wall Street where he says, I'm not leaving, I'm not leaving, I'm not leaving.
Yeah, it's good stuff. All right, back to your calls, and thank you, Tommy, for yours. Where are we going, Brian? Jody in West Columbia. Good to hear from you, Jody. Welcome to Sports Talk. Good.
Look here. I'm not going to fuss at y'all too much, but I swear it sounded like earlier y'all were writing Alabama off as now the dregs of the SEC.
No.
Tell me when y'all are talking about, and I know what you were getting at. I got it.
Just saying that, in every empire, in all of mankind,
there's always a Waterloo.
Well, there's a crack. Cracks occur.
Yeah.
And, the castle starts to crumble just a little bit. And what I was pointing out is things are happening, especially with Clemson and now Georgia. And Georgia's not going anywhere despite losing Justin Fields. They'll replace him. And they're going into Alabama, and they're sniping players away from Alabama that in the past you'd never consider these battles being lost by Alabama.
Well, you say lost, but good teams have always done that. Good teams have come into South Carolina and taken South Carolina players away.
Different.
That happens.
But except for Clemson here now and back in the 80s, you didn't have a program in South Carolina that was as dominant as Alabama has been, just not only locally in their own backyard, but nationally.
Well, and let's get to the dominance of Alabama for a second. Alabama lost that game for one reason and one reason only. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Clemson did a heck of a job capitalizing on it. In the third quarter, when Clemson went up, was it 16?
It was 31-16 at the half. So in the third quarter, they must have gone up 37-16 after the missed extra point.
Yeah.
Okay. They were still running the ball and getting 8 and 9 yards a carry.
They were.
Their OC, I think he got nervous. Or Saban, but I think the OC was calling plays. Had they been running the ball like they run it for the first half in the early part of the third quarter, I don't think you'd have seen them go up that bad.
Well, here's the deal.
We kept saying last night during the show, why aren't they running the football more?
That's why I've always said that for whatever reason, when you watch a football game, and I know you watch a lot of football like I do, when a team falls behind by 3 touchdowns, for whatever reason, they get out of the game plan. They just normally do. They start worrying about the clock. How many times are we going to have the ball again?
They tried scoring all 21 points on the one possession.
Yes,
which they couldn't do. But the one thing, again, anyone who's trying to diminish the amount of credit given toward Clemson in this game is oversimplifying this.
Red zone defense. Clemson, one of the best in the country. Alabama gave up drives at the Clemson 7, where they kicked a field goal. At the Clemson 24 on downs, the Clemson 11 on downs, the Clemson 9 on downs. And you got to take it all the way home.
And 10 of 15 on third down for Clemson.
Be right back.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
There were a couple of stats we were referencing before the break. More of your phone calls, 800-956-7266. Clemson 10 of 15 last night on third down. Alabama 4 of 13 on third down. You had things involving their red zone.
Well, I was just going to say, you know, caller was talking about Alabama moving the ball, and they did. But, I mean, Clemson shut them down in the red zone, going from the end of the game back into the game here in the fourth quarter. 9-play drive for Alabama, dies at the Clemson 9 on downs. 8 plays drive for Alabama, dies at the Clemson 11 on downs. 13-play drive, dies at the Clemson 24. 3 consecutive possessions in the third quarter, all ended on downs after long drives. They got nothing from it. And then they had a 11-play drive that reached the Clemson 7, and they had to settle for a field goal. So, yeah, they moved the ball. But, I mean, you know, the red zone defense by Clemson has been a strength all year.
Anybody can move the ball, but if you don't finish, you don't win football games. And the one thing I said right last night, I said a lot of wrong things about last night's game, at least in the preamble and getting into that. But from the standpoint of what I did say is I knew that Alabama was going to be able to move the football between the 20s.
Yes.
It was going to come down to Clemson's ability to stop them when they got close.
Exactly. That's why I thought Alabama would attack more when they were outside the 35-yard line, because Clemson is so quick and agile, especially when you try to run wide. Once that field constricts and you're inside that red zone anywhere from 20 yards on in, it's hard to bust it in on.
Much different game.
All right, let me give you the recruiting report. We're getting a little bit behind here. We'll get back to your phone calls, but recruiting, of course, is always important. So USC would love to land a special running back in the 20 class. They have their eye on Cartavius Bigsby, but we'll call him Tank, 6'1", 195, out of Hogansville, Georgia. And he has his eye on the Gamecocks with a return visit coming up on January 26th with his mom. He was there for a game this past season. Regular contact with Will Muschamp and Bobby Bentley, and that has the Gamecocks in good shape with him right now. He says they talk a lot. Clemson is also among the offers. He did not make it at Death Valley this season, but was there in 2017, and he's heard from their coaches. They also like him as a corner, but he wants to be a running back. 2A Offensive Player of the Year in Georgia by the AJC. Going to announce a top 5 soon. Has said USC, Auburn, and Georgia will make that short list. Ohio State, Notre Dame, Miami, Penn State, and Michigan, some of his other offers. Clemson running back target, Jerrion Ely of Jackson, Mississippi, announced today he has decommitted from Ole Miss. He is scheduled for an official to Clemson this weekend. And one to Ole Miss on the 25th. Now, I'm assuming that's going to happen because he made that comment at the All-Star game he was at, and I'm assuming the Clemson coaches, of course, they've got the parade and everything this weekend.
That'll be a fun little official visit. You get to go in on the parade.
If indeed this is going to happen this weekend. He's already taken an official to Mississippi State. 2020 Hammond defensive end Jordan Birch told Chad Simmons of Rivals last week at the Future 50 Showcase he likes Clemson, USC, and Georgia, but is still open and isn't really thinking about recruiting right now. And you will hear practically nothing from him throughout the recruiting period because his family, his parents, have put the kibosh on all recruiting interviews and comments from him or his coach about his recruiting. So this will be something that will be done in the dark for the most part. I got a feeling, however, that he will end up at Clemson when it's all said and done. You know, he's from Florence. That's where he grew up. And he's good friends with Xavier Thomas. Yeah, same kind of deal. Came from Florence, and they're good friends. And Clemson has, apparently been in good shape with him. He's been up there before. And, of course, South Carolina is on him strongly as well. But there's Alex Huntley there at Hammond, who's a very good defensive tackle that South Carolina's recruiting, but Clemson is not. The two are not tied to one another. People think, well, they're going to go. No. They don't have that kind of relationship from what I gather. So I would not look for that to have any impact one way or the other on either one. We go to Hank in Columbia. Next call here on Sports Talk. Hello, Hank. Welcome to Sports Talk.
Hey, how's it going? Hey, all credit goes to Clemson. They really dominated the game last night. And I think really the way they dominated it is that Venables really he took risks when he needed to take risks, and there were a number of times where Tua during the year has made teams pay for it, but he was kind of out of sorts, as you said. And so once Clemson got going downhill, Alabama, those losses they had last year and developing new people, just, Clemson was the better team. So, all credit to them. The one thing, listening to these callers, though, even if Saban is 68 or whatever, now Alabama ain't going nowhere. I mean, the yardage with those two teams last night, if you got any motivation, you got a whole bunch of number one recruiting classes on that team that got to grow up and learn. So I think that Clemson is going to be there and is one of the lead programs on par with Alabama. But I don't think Alabama is all of a sudden, because of one night, going back into the abyss.
No.
I don't think anybody's trying to say that Alabama is done or is not anywhere short of the top spot, or at least near the top spot in all of college football. The problem is they're no longer the invincible mass that they once were. They can be beaten.
Mm-hmm.
Clemson proved that.
And they never were, but somebody had to knock the door open.
And get used to saying Tango Valoa for a few more years because, of course, his brother is coming in.
Yes.
Next at quarterback. Now, I'm sure in the next couple of days we're going to be hearing a lot of stories about Jalen Hurts, right? Because he's obviously going to be leaving, I guess. Obviously.
We'll see.
We say obviously, we guess. Certainly seems to be the speculation.
Stands to reason.
Want to mention this very quickly because I did the research, so why not put the information out there? And we'll get back to calls in a moment. These are interesting, though. In the final NCAA stats, Clemson, national now, this is 129 teams, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Number one in total offense, fourth in scoring offense, 10th in rushing offense, fifth in total defense, first in scoring defense, second in sacks, tackles for loss second, rushing defense fourth, third down conversion defense sixth, red zone defense fourth. ETN, first in rushing touchdowns, and total points scored, fourth in rushing yards and fourth in rushing yards per carry. Ross was fourth in yards per reception, Higgins eighth in receiving touchdowns, Furl fourth in sacks, and fourth in tackles for loss.
That's big.
That's why you're good. South Carolina in the stats. And I'm just putting this out there, not for comparison, but these are the final stats for the year. Total offense, 43rd, which is an improvement. Scoring offense, 56th. Total defense.
Nowhere to go but up from last year.
Total defense, 84th. Scoring defense, 69th. Here's the one thing that jumped at me. Time of possession out of 129 teams,
dead last.
129th in time of possession.
Dead last.
First down defense, 127th, which means they gave up way too many first downs. Red zone offense, 117th. Jake Bentley, 18th in passing touchdowns and 28th in total offense.
See, this is stupid Gamecock fans. Someone responded to our post about the game. We said
You're not making any friends.
We had some positive Gamecock news, and this guy David goes, Muschamp got fired. See, again, this is stupid, man.
We go to Jerry Lee in Coward. Hello, Jerry Lee. Welcome to Sports Talk.
Good afternoon, Phil. I'm just Jesse Carroll. This ain't Phil Jerry Lee. They're Jerry Lee and Coward. But I'd like to say something. I've said it, and I'll still say it. That I said it back in the middle of the season that Clemson would be the last one standing. And I said also that they would beat Alabama by 2 touchdowns. And everybody said, you crazy, a lunatic. But and everybody said, Lawrence. Last night on ESPN News, I believe was, Booger McFarland said Alabama would be called, he'd be called the Alabama uncle when the game got over with. And Jason Witten, that played with the Dallas Cowboys, said when Lawrence gets to with Alabama, they'd be calling him Mister.
Yeah.
I believe that's not the way it happened. And I wish that the news media and all would start giving the ACC a little bit of acknowledgement, because I believe that if you look at it, we've done as good as SEC.
All right, got to hit a break. We got your points. We'll talk about it when we come back. Thank you.
Well, we get a final analysis here on the game from last night, a 44-16 win for Clemson over Alabama. We did 1st and 10 last night with Zach Willis. I guess this is 2nd and short because that's what Alabama was in all night. But after getting 2nd and short, they could not get it in from the red zone, Corn.
Yes, had a lot of problems with that as we welcome into Sports Talk for 2nd and 10 with Zach Willis, since he was with us last night for 1st and 10. 2nd and 10 with Zach Willis to wrap things up, looking back at Clemson's national championship victory last night over Alabama. Zach, no way. I mean, listen, even somebody like me can analyze this one. Really domination by Clemson is in the second half. I mean, it was, a ball game for a while in the first half, but complete domination in the second half. What did you see in the second half in particular that led Clemson to win this thing going away?
Well, two really huge things stood out. Well, 3 things, major points, and I'm going to be real quick so we can get a lot done. Clemson won the 50-50 balls, and they did what I hoped they would do. They moved their big-time players into the slot, took the place of Jordan Leggett, and beat them even worse than Leggett beat them with big, huge passes. 3rd down and 16, they hit a 64-yard bomb to him, burned the safeties extremely bad, just like they did to Notre Dame. Saban evidently didn't watch that Notre Dame film. It's the exact same route. Red zone defense, very reminiscent of a game I coached against Michigan when they had Shoelace. They were undefeated. We were undefeated. We knew he could not throw certain routes. As the red zone condensed this thing, Clemson's speed and dominance on the defensive front, they welcomed them down into the red zone, in my opinion, and had an incredible game plan. Just whipped Alabama down there physically. I can't believe I'm saying this. They physically dominated and beat up and intimidated and made Alabama quit in the 4th quarter.
All right, explain one thing. Explain that welcome them in to the red zone as if, just we're going to give up yards in the middle of the field, but we've got a great plan to stop them inside the 20?
Pretty much. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but remember Muhammad Ali and a lot of people.
Bend it, but don't break.
We bent, but we're not going to break. It's a very high-level coaching and mindset by the Clemson staff, extremely wise. Alabama does not have a great goal line package. If they can't run it on you or dink a wide-open pass, they can't score. The problem is they run it on everybody, okay? And they couldn't run it on Clemson down there, and that was proven over and over and over again by Clemson's dominance. And then the last thing, the 3rd point, and you can ask whatever you want, is Saban panicked. He went for it on his own 35-yard line in the first half. He knew he couldn't stop Clemson, and the fake field goal was absolutely, I don't know, I don't have words for how poorly that was designed. It was just as bad as what Georgia did on the fake punt against the first defense who had lined up and, in safe, planning on a fake coming, and their lead blocker was their place kicker. They ran an ISO play with a place kicker leading for the hooker. He got smoked. Lucky they didn't get kicker hurt or the holder. And then, at the end of the game, I mean, they ran the clock out in the first half. Saban didn't try to drive. He got a makeable 3rd and 4, and he threw in the towel. And largest deficit in the history of Alabama football under Saban and largest loss against anybody. They made them look like Wake Forest.
I know you.
Wait a minute. Made them look like Wake Forest?
Easy.
Yeah. They beat Wake Forest pretty bad, if you remember, and they quit. Alabama quit in the 4th quarter. So were Clemson's threes at times. Midway through the 2nd quarter, Dabo was putting 2s and 3s in. Nolan Turner played a bunch of snaps in that game, and he ain't a starter, at least not yet, although he probably will be.
I know you.
Give you an example.
You have a great admiration for the Clemson coaching staff. How surprised were you that they crafted a game plan as such to really confuse Alabama? And not just that, but it did really seem like they really proved last night that Alabama doesn't really have the ability to cycle through coordinators and assistants the way they've done over the last couple of years, because it seemed like Mike Loxley was way in over his head last night at the OC position.
Well, you can't overrate talent. Alabama's got a ton of talent, but I had the unfortunate chance to coach against Alabama in a bowl game, and they leave tons of holes. Their defense is very unsound, but they're so athletic. You can't find the gaps unless you're just as good as they are to hurt them. And they ran into a crowd last night that was just as talented and a quarterback for the ages in Trevor Lawrence. He is he's everything we thought he was in spring and more.
Well, Coach, it's been a long time since I've been in college, but
you know, you go in a class and you take maybe 12, 14 weeks of classes, and then you get the final exam, but you get a little bit of knowledge along the way to prepare you for that final exam. I could swear when I saw Clemson playing, they worked on Alabama after every practice, after every game they played this year, and the final exam was last night, and they aced it.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to tell you something. That's something I always believed in. My rival games, and I had a pretty good record. We upset a lot of people that we weren't supposed to beat little old Newberry, because we take 10 minutes at the end of every practice, starting the first day of two-a-days, and work on their offense. And sometimes it takes years of defending a certain offense and doing that to get there. But I have no doubt they did something of that fashion, because they had them where they wanted them, and they just whipped them. And, you know, we can talk about all the peripheral stuff. This is all about their kids, the culture, their program. What Dabo Swinney's been able to develop down there is nothing short of incredible. This is as good a college football team and the most dominant college football team I've seen in the last 20 years. Look at the margins of victory over people like Notre Dame and Alabama. It was 44-16 in the third quarter, guys.
Mm-hmm.
That may be the best Alabama team he's ever had. That's going to hurt to hear that. But they figured out Tua can't throw an out route. He can't throw a fade route. He throws in routes well. Mm-hmm. And they gave them to him early, and then they put Mark Fields on the tight end, matched up, and took that away. And when they took that away, Alabama was dead except for putting the ball, and they couldn't run in the red zone because Christian Wilkins wasn't going to let them. They couldn't block him.
Did Tua look healthy to you?
Yeah, he's fine. I mean, he's healthy enough to win the game if they had better players. They weren't healthy enough. Their cornerbacks couldn't have covered Justin Ross with 3 men. That cat, hey, he whipped them physically. He outran them. He outjumped them. He caused one kid to break it. He literally broke a guy's ankle. You hear the term. Yeah. He did it. Now, I feel bad for the young man. I hope he comes back, because Alabama is a high-character class football team. But we're talking purely what happened in that game. Mm-hmm. Those wide receivers dominated that game. And Coach Caldwell and that offensive line leaned on Alabama for 2 quarters, and then they owned them in the second half. An amazing victory to me. Amazing in the dominance. Not that it happened, but the way they did it, the dominance. I mean, they whipped those guys, and you may never see that again, because Alabama ain't going nowhere. Let's not kid ourselves. Don't put them down. That diminishes Clemson's victory. This was an incredible victory, one of the best performances in the history of college football.
Justin Ross is the best wide receiver you've seen since when?
Jerry Rice, Randy Moss. I mean, as a freshman, maybe ever. Trevor Lawrence, once you ask about him, he has the mentality of Joe Montana. Some of you don't know that, but he had the best game mentality I've ever seen. He's got the size of Brady and the arm and athleticism of Elway.
Justin Ross reminds me of when John Madden says he loves wide receivers whose eyeballs don't bounce. They concentrate. Concentrate on the football, and they bring it in.
Motivation for 2019. Then, where does it come from? Within, I mean, look, they've already completed the first 15-0 season in the modern history of the game. They've already pronounced themselves as maybe one of the greatest teams of all time. They've won 2 of the last 3 national championships. Where does motivation come from for 2019?
Where did it come from when they lost the best defensive tackle in college football and their best tight end to a drug test? From their character, from their heart, from who they are, from the culture that Dabo Swinney's built. Hey, if you think it's been hard down there in Death Valley or across the lake at their new facility, practice has been hard before. Clemson fans, you ain't seen nothing yet. He will push them to new limits. Now, whether or not they've got to stay healthy, blah, 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 the motivation to repeat, he can go through the statistics of how many great champions can't repeat. You know, and they should look at that. Trevor Lawrence has a chance to do some special things here. They all do. But character's there, man. These guys can do it. Now, will they do it? We'll just have to sit back. But that's the fun of it. We get to watch.
Zach, we can't thank you enough for all your help this football season. It has been a great ride with you, and best of the offseason to you and the wife, and we will be talking to you and back with you next football season.
It's been a true honor, especially to be on tonight after Clemson wins the national title for our state. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Back in a moment.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
It's been a great show hearing from you. We'll continue to do so at 800-956-7266. And also, with the continued prosperity in the state of South Carolina, that means an opportunity for some memorabilia. We will talk about that in just a moment.
Yeah, Bob Eibach will join us here in just a second, but Mark in Aiken's been holding on, and let's bring him on before we get to Bob. Mark, welcome into Sports Talk. How are you?
Hey, Phil, thanks for taking my call. Listen, I want to ask you something personally, Phil. I had a guy tell me today that, that he thought that Clemson and Alabama playing again hurt college football and on the whole. And the more I thought about it, I'm like, well, if we would have gone to the old way of doing things with coaches voting, Alabama and Clemson would have been 1-2 playing in the Orange Bowl. If it would have been a BCS, whatever bowl would have been on the rotor for this year, they would have played in that bowl. And with the playoffs, they're 1-2. Clearly, Clemson showed that they weren't barely the best team this year. They were by far and away the best team. So I want to ask you, if you don't want to see them, somebody's got to beat them. So do you think this hurts football if these two teams play, let's say, for the next 3 to 5 years every year? Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
No.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's unavoidable. This year was unavoidable. They were on a collision course from the opening weekend, and they took care of their business. They avoided the little traps along the way. I think Clemson did Alabama have any real close scare other than Georgia?
Citadel
had them down 10-0. No. So really, outside of the SEC championship game, they did not have any close calls. Clemson had 2, one on the road at Texas A&M and one at home against Syracuse. Who's the third one?
South Carolina was a dogfight.
Yeah.
No, but the defense just didn't show up.
South Carolina did a great job offensively, but they weren't going to stop. But Clemson had almost 800 yards, remember, 744.
I will tell you this. I really do. You were talking about incentives. I really think for Clemson going forward, they need a foil to step up in the ACC.
Well, that's the other thing.
That may be Syracuse or not. I don't know, but they need somebody like a Florida State to rejuvenate.
I forget
and challenge them.
It was Zach in the last segment or somebody before we got to Zach. All the motivation tactics for Dabo Swinney are out the window. The whole Roy bus thing, you can't use that anymore. You got to find some new material if you're Dabo Swinney.
No, they're in the lead vehicle now. They're in the front of the bus. They're the Kings.
And they needed that motivational tactic, that little humbling situation. I don't know where they find that, but they might have it.
All right, thank you for your phone call. Just to answer your question, is it going to hurt college football? I mean, look, TV ratings are on a natural decline because that's just the nature of the business. People are cutting the cord. They're watching other things. It's a natural decline. NFL attendance this year was down 11%. These things are happening across the board. Does it hurt college football? I think in some ways you're going to lose if it continues to be just a regional championship between an ACC team and an SEC team in nearby states. I mean, you could see a major drop-off in national interest, especially if it's a repeat performance. It would be nice to see somebody else rise up and kind of change the flavor a little bit. I know Clemson fans don't want to hear that. Alabama fans don't want to hear that. But, for the good of the game and for the national interest, to have a Pac-12 team and to have Southern Cal back in a national championship setting, or Ohio State or Texas, and that would not hurt the game at all. It's not going to hurt the game if Clemson and Alabama are not both in the national championship game.
So would that speed up the impetus to going to 8?
That's not – listen, we already put that to bed through 26.
Well, they always put things to bed that change their minds.
Now, we had a caller ask about Christian Miller, whether or not he showed up on the participation chart. He did not.
Yeah, I don't think he played. We were looking for him. He was dressed. He was a captain, but I don't think he played. Bob Eibach is back with us from Chicago. And for Clemson fans or friends of Clemson fans who want to be nice, he's going to tell you something you can get your hands on, as he has done over the years for this and basketball as well. Bob, good to have you back.
Nice to be with you guys again, and seems like an annual thing that we do because, Clemson has been so high up there in the standings in recent years. And, of course, 2 championships now in the last 3 years. And we had a chance to hook up again with Wilson and the college football playoffs, the Extra Yard for Teachers, which is the official charity of the college football playoffs. And for Clemson fans who want to get themselves, I think, one of the most historic pieces of sports memorabilia, at least in college football, because, no team has ever gone unbeaten and won 15 games in the same season. There was a team back in 1897, Penn, won 15 games, but I never count things that happened before 1900 anyhow. So, but this is an unbelievable, uncharted territory. Dabo's team has just done a remarkable job. The way that it's destroyed Alabama 44-16, and earlier before that Notre Dame. And this football is made by Wilson. It's $99. We started out with 5,000 of these. We started launching them this morning. We're probably halfway sold out coming into the show tonight. I'll give out a toll-free number and a website if you want to get a piece of history and own one of these Clemson officially licensed college football championship footballs. It's beautiful. They come with several white panels on the ball, has the official college football playoff logo, the Clemson logo with that traditional orange paw on there, the ACC title logo, the Cotton Bowl logo, and that big win against Notre Dame that got them to the title game. And then we have it'll say right across the top of that panel, national champions, only the third time in Clemson's history, the first one being back in 1981 and the other one a couple of years ago. So that's on that part of the ball. Then right below that is every one of the 15 games positioned in chronological order. And you'll be able to have the score, the date of the game, the opponent. So years from now, in case you forgot how they got to the championship game or some of the games along the way, you can use it as kind of your crystal ball. You'll have all the information right there. Everything is embossed on this ball. It's not pad printed. Wilson's taking the extra time to go ahead and put all that in an embossed fashion on the ball, which really makes it pop out. An extra yard for teachers. I don't have to tell you how important all of us have had teachers in our lifetime who have impacted our careers and our life. And this is a great way to salute them. The proceeds from this will help get educational programs for school teachers, recognition in newspapers, on television, radio. Some of the feature stories will actually discuss school teachers in different parts of the country. So it's got a great purpose behind it. And this is the 5th straight year that Extra Yard for Teachers has been the official charity. So if you'd like to order these, we set up 2 different ways. You can call, again, they're $99, only 5,000 ever made. We're about halfway sold out already, so there's a little urgency here. Call 1-800-345-2868. That's 1-800-345-2868. We have a nice website. You can see the Clemson Championship football there and order it online. The website address is NICOsports.com. Let me spell that. It's a little tricky. NIKCO sports.com. And in closing, I have to say that in the last 5 years, we've raised close to $2.4 million for charities. And I know your network has been a big part of that over that period of time. And a big shout out to everybody along the way who's helped us achieve that.
Listen, we're glad to help out the little bit that we can. I know the people that we have been able to deliver the balls to have loved them, the footballs and the basketballs, and we thank you, and we'll be talking to you again.
Yeah, we'll be checking back with you each day this week and try to go ahead and see if we can get a sellout and give updates. And the goal is, like we did a couple of years ago, sell all 5,000 out. You'll get a numbered certificate of authenticity with it as well.
Thank you, sir. Good hearing from you. We'll talk to you again soon.
That's a good-looking ball.
Okay, you take care. Have a good night.
Yeah, we just tweeted out a link to the website for you Clemson fans in particular who want to click on it and get a look at them.
And by we, I mean you and I did it literally at the exact same time. So
Literally.
Exact same time.
Literally.
I did it, and then you did it.
All right, real quick, the Board of Trustees meeting tomorrow at South Carolina. It's a conference call to approve, hiring in the athletic department or contracts in the athletics department. Again, the websites, Big Spur and Gamecock Central, both reporting they're going to be hiring Thomas Brown to be running backs coach.
Gamecock Hoops tonight as well.
And also you've got Bobby Bentley apparently moving to tight ends and possibly some other adjustments that we'll find out tomorrow on the Gamecock coaching staff.
Plenty to talk about tomorrow.
Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.